Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network, except it's only going to be on YouTube this one. This is just a live stream special. It's a draft party, Jim. The number one pick is in, and we're going to talk all about it and all sorts of other stuff. Jim, how you doing, brother?
Dude, I'm good, man. This is well, it's Christmas in July. Did you get the present you wanted when you ran down and saw it, or are you disappointed? You wanted laser tag and you got the cheap Kmart knockoff version, or did you get laser tag?
Right. Did mom get you GoBots or Optimus Prime? I know exactly what you're saying,
that's
brother.
that's much better.
We shopped at Hills too. So like I but I mean, you wake up and there's a lot of talk about the Pirates are going to screw this up. Some people were awful confident they were going to screw this up, and screw it up had to be used kind of liberally anyway, right? Because screw it up, it would be really hard to. The top 4 or 5 on this board are really, really elite players. So I'm not sure necessarily how they were going to screw that up.
It would have been hard to do this time, even for the Pirates, Gary.
Yeah, so Paul Skeens, that's who you wanted. That's who you landed on. I stuck with Cruz. I stuck with him. I felt like he was still the best one. But I also said, if they got one of these top 3 or 4, I would be pretty happy and just trust that they were picking the one they wanted. Skeens makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. Let's talk about why it makes sense. We'll get into why people might be afraid. If you're just ready to jump off Clemente Bridge over it, you just might not like baseball. So
Yeah, look, they got, as long as, for me, as long as they didn't go the high school route, I thought it didn't line up with them right now. I was going to be totally fine with Skeens, Cruz, and even Langford, who really gained some steam at the end, I think. But yeah, I was set on those three, and I don't think they could have made a wrong choice. We'll find out later on how wrong or right it is.
yeah, I mean, I think if you think it's dead wrong, it can't be about the talent, really. I mean, I haven't seen anybody that, even the people that have tried to like almost do him dirty and knock him down the board with the valuations. You know how that happens. Like on
Yeah,
ESPN, someone wants a hot take to say Paul Skeens should go number 5 or something. Um, Even that they're talking about like, oh, maybe there's not quite enough shape on a fastball. Um, maybe he's never going to be able to develop a fourth pitch, and he needs a fourth pitch, or he might be
yeah.
a bullpen arm. But nobody said he was going to stink. You obviously don't want to draft 1-1 a closer, and I don't think that's what they did. But nobody thinks this kid's just a bust.
No, listen, we all know what this comes down to, right? Can the arm stay healthy? Um, I think if it does, and yes, Gary, it's a risk. It's a ballsy pick. I'll say that there's some balls to this pick for Ben Sherrington.
I mean, let's see what some of the people on here have to say about it. Well, first, Douglas Smith likes that we mentioned Hills, and I agree. It needs mentioned often.
That's
Let's see.
they're a number one pick too, by the way.
Yeah. Dean Horowitz says, great pick. Let's see. John Gorman, it's been a long time since I was this happy about the team. Home run pick for GMBC and the Pirates. They got it right. Going to be awesome to see this kid pitch. Let's see. Pittsburgh sports all the time. Made the right pick, in my opinion. Oh, man. I think we got a lot of them, Jim. I'm going to try to get to as many of them as I can here. Chris Laverty. Thank God they didn't swear word it up. Let's see.
Anybody out there that hates it? Because
I got one here that at least is fair about it. Riskier pick, not what I would have done, but it's Ben's funeral, not mine, from my buddy Wilbert Matthews. I get it. I mean, it is risky if this is a Tommy John situation at some point. You know, and I'm not going to placate that situation by bringing up like Cruz could have an Achilles tear, because I don't think that's fair. You know, we have to admit it happens a
Right.
lot more with pitchers, right?
It sure does. It sure does. As we went further into this and got closer and closer, I just felt that it looked like if you truly want to go all in, yes, it could blow up in your face, but this was the guy to truly go all in with. And I will just leave it at this little thing. Mitch Keller, you put Skeens with Keller at the top of that rotation. We've seen what Keller is now. You'd have to look a long time back through the years to think about a formidable 1-2 for the Pirates like this.
Right.
And you need some hogs up in the front of that starting rotation. You really do. If you want to go deep into the playoffs and maybe win a World Series, is that putting the cart before the horse? Yes. But that's why you're making this kind of pick, I think.
Yeah, Pittsburgh sports all the time agrees with you. You have to take that risk if you want to be a World Series champion at some point. And if that's really the goal, which it should be, Jim, I think that's what we want to see, a World Series champion. Not just a winner, not just like competitive, not in it, not a playoff win. I don't want to just win a division and be happy. I want to win a World Series. I think that's what they should be thinking. Then this is that type of pick.
It is. That's what I'm saying. There's some real stones to this pick. Am I a huge Ben Sherrington guy? No, but I will give him credit in the sense of everyone's talking about, well, do you want to win? Do you want to try to win now? This is that kind of pick, Gary. This is not, if you wanted to just be safe, you'd take Dylan Cruz. Right. I think.
Let's see, our buddy Josh over at Bridge to Bucktober podcast says, Skeens is rated higher than Garrett Cole. I don't think we've ever had a pitcher of this caliber. Maybe not a projected pitcher of that caliber, at least. I mean,
that's why I shaped it like I did when I mentioned the Keller Skeens thing, is because on paper, yes, yeah. Josh is probably 100% right there. It's just, he's got to pitch first. We got to see it, but yeah.
It's got to happen at the right time too. Like you're expecting a kid like that to come up and immediately dominate major leagues. And I look at a guy like Hunter Green. We used him as a comp already, but the fastball's crazy. It really is. If he doesn't give it a little more shape, he's not going to just dominate this league right away. That's going to come maybe in year 3 for him. Is that too late for this like immediate help aspect of drafting somebody like Skeens? Are people maybe thinking a super advanced college is maybe more advanced than it really is?
Could be. I will say with Skeens, he's got a secondary and a third pitch that are really advanced. So this is not somebody that, his slider is ridiculous. So even if the fastball needs a little bit of time to get where he wants it in the major leagues, well, first of all, if you're throwing 100, 101, you can make up for a lot of that just in velocity.
Sure.
But then you're talking secondary and third pitches. He's as close to a finished product as I think that you can get in college. And, I can really see them fast tracking him too.
I totally can too, man. We still do have to take a break. So we're going to take a break. Only one tonight. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. In the meantime, in the chat, give us your questions about anything. Ask us anything the rest of the time we're on here today. We'll just have a loose, fun show today.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Draft special here. Jim and I are super stoked about the pick, I think, collectively. I think that's where we landed, Jim. And it looks like most of the commenters here agree. There's a few people that sprinkled in things like, I really would have gone with Cruz. I like Langford, but I'm okay with it. You know, I don't think you're going to get any vitriol, really. The biggest thing you're going to get is people concerned about the injuries. We will talk about that. There are some questions starting to roll in we're going to get to. But before we do, Jim, the rest of the top of the board, I think we should just kind of cover because we've been talking about a lot of these guys, right? So let's just address where they went, right?
Yeah.
So Paul Skeens obviously went to us. Dylan Cruz, Washington. Max Clark went to Detroit. This is not fair. Look at the Rangers right now. And with number 4, they draft Wyatt Langford.
Yeah.
that team is going to be a juggernaut.
Yep.
And then Walker Jenkins, a fairly new name to this list for people that are only loosely paying attention to it and pretending they're super really into it. But Walker Jenkins, he goes to the Twins at number 5. And our buddy Jack Wilson's son, Jacob Wilson, goes to the A's at number 6. And I kind of wish he didn't go to that franchise, Jim, but he did. So
yeah, I know it. You know what? Not the best timing of a draft for him in general with the names up top, and then that situation there. But you know what? He seems like a really good kid and comes from obviously good baseball stock. So I don't think it'll affect him.
I agree with you, brother. Let's start doing some questions here. We got one from Chris Laverty. How much pressure, if any, is on Marin and the rest of the pitching staff with this pick? Whew, that's a good question, Jim, because I could argue he should be in trouble before he gets here. But yeah, the plan will be Marin. So, like, you know, let's say they get cute with him and want him to pull back on the velocity a little bit. I'm not sure you draft somebody that can throw 102 looking like he's just flicking his wrist and tell him to take some velocity away, right? And especially when he's shown command of it.
This is whenever you finally get what you wanted, and then you're like, oh boy, now we got to make it work, right?
It's like these people that run around buying Maseratis living in Pittsburgh. Where are you driving that?
And then you got to make
driving that in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you can't drive anywhere. You got to make the car payments on it. I mean,
you take it down to Shenley. I mean,
yeah. Can you justify the pick, right? Yeah, I Marin, if he wasn't on the under the microscope now, which he is, look, you can't mess this up. This is one of those things where you've got to hit on it. I mean, he's got to be what people think he can be. I think it's huge amount of pressure with a guy like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say if he gets to touch him at all, he better not screw anything up because he won't get much more of a shot. You're not going to get 3 years to fix this one. Just saying.
No.
Douglas Smith here, he says, what I really like is the depth of the draft class. GMBC is really good at drafts. Yeah. I mean, I think so far I've liked his plan. I think what I'll say for him is whether I've agreed with his plan or not, it's a clearly defined plan and he's executed it well. So far. I don't know how this entire draft shapes up yet, but so far, when he starts going down a path, I'm going to do this. He does it, and he does it well.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen here with the rest of this draft. And quite frankly, when you're making a pick this high and then you've got to wait so long, that's challenging. So I don't know how much they're going to be able to just nail it like they might have when they picked Henry Davis. Totally different scenario.
Yeah.
But I think that it was clear what they thought this year was like, we're not going to pass on one or two of the best players, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what falls to us. We'll see how that works out, but we're not going to get ahead of ourselves before we even get to that point.
Right. I think that's good that they went that direction. James Littleton here. You mentioned fast tracking skiing, start of 24, mid 24, start of 25. Ugh. I don't know. It had to be talked about, James, so I don't hate the question. But
it's really hard to
it depends
answer.
on what you take from even Ben Charrington's comments today, where he didn't roll out that they were going to put him right into the system this year. And it sounded like he didn't even roll out the major leagues. I find that very hard to believe. I find that very hard to believe. In fact, there's a lot of people that find it hard to believe you'd have him pitch in the system at all after what he just did in college this year. That's going to be their call. I'm not going to take their immediate right after the pick words as gospel quite yet.
It's such a guessing. It's such a guessing game. All this information everyone has about arms, and they have a ton of it, and they still don't know how to handle that. I'd be shocked, absolutely shocked, if you saw him in the majors. Like, that's the one thing that I don't even see the benefit into that this year.
I don't think it's necessary, but I can see like maybe throwing him, some like camp time, down at the Florida complex or something along those lines. And
sure,
I don't know if you really, really feel you need to let him throw a couple games in Bradenton, but I just don't see it with the time frame left for when that season would end. I just don't think that there would be time for him to ramp up to anything useful. And I don't know that you'd want really this guy to debut in a relief role for you. I think you might want to go like just let him start clean next year with a fresh throwing program and take care of the arm. You don't buy a prize horse and then whip it into the barn.
Sure. Yeah. You know what I'm a little surprised that we haven't got a question about yet, and is I'm surprised nobody has asked yet if they see the Pirates letting him hit at all. Because this is what here, Gary, I saw this blew me away. They said that if he wasn't a pitcher, he still would have been he still would have gone in the top 3 rounds this year.
Maybe. I don't know what kind of competition he was facing in Air Force, really. And, there's a reason that he stopped doing it at the SEC. Let's just say.
Agree.
So we'll see what happens. I'm sure the Pirates aren't adverse to letting people try. They let Bubba Chandler try. So why not? Maybe they will. I don't care. If you've got a Shohei, great. But
I wonder if that makes teams think a little differently. Like, if you've got a guy with that kind of abilities, good athlete, big guy, good athlete, hey, he even caught. If you've got a bat that looks that good, do you let him do it a little bit, just see how it looks? I don't know. Are they too afraid to do that with this egg they have in their hands that they don't, they want to make sure that they get every ounce of pitching out of them?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Let's see what KC says here. What level will Skeens start at next year? That's kind of along the lines of what James was asking too, a little bit. I can't imagine there's any use in starting him in Bradenton. So I would think you're probably looking at Greensboro. The only reason that I would say they may want to just not go to Greensboro is because Greensboro is not a good stomping ground for pitchers. I'm not 100% sure I'd want to start him there. I might start him in Double-A if I'm honest.
I think that's perfectly reasonable for a guy like this. I do.
We'll see. I mean, it's up to them. I think that's what I would do. That would be pretty aggressive. It's essentially what they did with Henry. He wasn't in Greensboro long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think if he wasn't injured, he probably would have been there even less. So, yeah.
Right.
Let's see. Brandon Richards, can you remember a draft where the top 5 projected picks actually did go top 5? Um, I'm probably a bad person to ask this, Brandon, because I don't pay much attention to the projections. I kind of know who the top of the board is, and the top of the board usually doesn't change. What changes is people needing to have a new angle towards the end. So
Yeah, and the only thing that messes with that is like the slot stuff. If teams maybe want to take the guy that was going to be fourth, second, or hell, first,
yeah,
third, first, or something like that, that can mess it up. But yeah, like I, I think this was such a top heavy draft that everyone kind of knew. It worked out pretty much like I think a lot of people ended up thinking it would before everybody got carried away.
and here, Wilbert Matthews actually did ask the question. It's reported that Skeens is a heck of a hitter too. So can he be a poor man's Otani? And we kind of talked about that before we brought up the question, but I'm glad to see that somebody else was thinking of it too.
Yeah, like the more I read about how much of a good hitter he is and that he could have gone top 3 rounds, then it starts making you think like, hey, I mean, is his arm going to fall off because he has to take some swings? I mean, I would explore it.
Why not, man?
Well, I mean,
Pirates could use a feel-good story like that, right?
Listen, how often do you get a guy that is probably, they were saying, like, if he'd have batted this year, he'd have hands down been the best two-way player in the draft.
Certainly interesting.
So,
certainly.
Hey, you're going to be bold. Be really bold.
All right, let's see. I'm looking for more questions here because we got so many of them here. Phew. Bubba is doing it. He's in single A. Bubba isn't doing it anymore, Doug. Bubba stopped doing that this year to focus on being a pitcher, which hasn't been going super great. But
nor was the hitting, which is why they eventually.
Right. It was always kind of his dream to try it, but I think even he knew his future really was pitching. So.
Yeah, and remember that situation is they weren't sure if they were going to be able to sign him.
Right.
And so when somebody says, "Hey, I would like to try this," you're probably going to say, "Okay, sure, let's do it. Sign." So that had a lot to do with it too, I think.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh Sports All the Time says, I think we just say, just ignore pitching stats in Greensboro, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I agree with you. But I don't know, when you introduce somebody to professional ball, you got to be careful about something like that. I wouldn't want that to be his first hello league, giving up some easy bombs to right because somebody caught up with 102,
Yeah. And part of that comes down to the actual player too. Some guys handle that a lot better. I will say that I read from the LSU coach. He said that Skeens was their unquestioned leader, and he was, for being there such a short time, he was their team leader, and everybody looked to him. So what I'm saying is mentality and makeup, that stood out to me. I don't think that was a knock on Cruz. I just think he was saying like, wow, this guy really was the guy. Maybe he could handle that and brush it off, but yeah.
Maybe we're seeing that Charrington has a type. I mean, Henry Davis got all of those leadership intangibles. Paul Skeens seems to have those. Sat down and talked to Kutch and kind of identified whether he had a spot for him or not. He wanted those intangibles in his room. I think we can say Carlos Santana has shown a lot of those intangibles this year. It looks like G-Man Choi has too. I'm glad he's getting an opportunity to kind of show that a little bit now. I think maybe that's kind of what Ben Charrington's going for, is getting a room full of those types of people, leaders,
Well, look, the franchise has had too much losing, and that can seep into a lot of areas and a lot of corners of a building. And so you better have some guys. Look, do you want to collect talent? Great. That's awesome too. But look what the Padres are going through with that group. There's a lot of I think there's some personality problems. There's some infighting. There's some guys not meshing real well. And just from afar, that looks like that's what's happening there. Right. So you better get guys that can be professionals and handle winning and losing, because in Pittsburgh, it's important. More so than other places, I think, Gary.
Right. So Anthony Scher says, how do you guys feel about the depth of the pitching in the system moving forward? The flippant answer is better today than than I did yesterday. But no, in all sincerity, this is a shot in the arm that I think it really needed. I like the basis of what I'm seeing. Like, I really like Jones. I really think Priester's going to come along, and it's going to take Priester a little while, I think. I really do. I'm not putting him down or saying he's not going to be a good pitcher in this league, but I think it's going to take him a couple seasons. I see him more as a Keller type with a little less velocity. Like, I think he's going to have to learn and take his lumps in the league and fight a little bit. Jones, I love his arm. Solometo, crazy stuff. Love what I'm seeing there. Now you throw Skeens into that situation. You've got Shim down there, who's really intriguing. I really like a lot of it. And I like specifically what's kind of up in the next two levels. Kyle Nicholas, you got Kranick coming back from injury. And then at some point, after all of these balls are rolling and all these plates are spinning, you're going to start to have guys trickle back from Tommy John like JT Brubaker and Michael Burrows,
Right. Yeah. I think, Gary, for me to answer that question, and it was a good one, I will feel a lot better about it if they can get Keller signed and under contract, because then it gives you a little bit more wiggle room for guys that either do get hurt or guys that don't pan out. We can't expect just Jones, Priester, Solometo, right there. You can't expect all of them to hit.
I have to put this up. I'm sorry. Chris Laverty, do we really want Haynes or his philosophies anywhere near Skeens? That's the reason to not have him hit in the organization. I 100%, I 100% am with you, Chris. That is comment of the night, no matter what comes in. And hi to our buddy Ethan over at Locked On Pirates. How you doing, brother? All right. Let's see. How about Douglas Smith? When I ask who is our rotation in 2024, I don't see a capable six. I think you're going to see Keller. I think you're going to see probably Oviedo. I think you're going to see Rawanzi and Ortiz probably rebound. And if not, one of them will matriculate to the bullpen and Jones or Priester will come up. They'll have to get a free agent. They have to go get a free agent. And if I were them, I'd go get two. So.
Yeah, Ortiz and Contreras are obviously concerns right now. My feeling is if you can get one of them back to being in the starting rotation type deal, that gives you a little more leeway too. But going into spring training, I think they're going to need another solid arm from outside,
right,
to make this work. There's still this gap. We're still dealing with that gap right now, despite all the names we're throwing out, I think.
And I'm going to bring this up because I think this is an excellent point here from Pittsburgh Sports All the Time. If I'm being honest, I forgot Max Cranit existed. Now, I talk about him a lot because, I like him, and I was pretty excited about him, and I really liked especially what I liked most about Max was his ability to improve over off seasons on his own. I mean, I loved his maturation in that process to turn himself into something. The conversations you're having right now about a guy like Max Kranick coming back, who, if everything goes right, will return with like a 97 to 98 mile an hour fastball and could at least be a really nice bullpen piece, if not a surprise starter for you at some point. You're going to be having these same kind of talks in 2025 ish with like Burrows coming back. And that's kind of like almost like a really crappy savings account for pitching sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you tend to have a bank of guys that go on TJ or, some kind of shoulder surgery or something along those lines that takes them out for an extended period of time. And then you almost just, through no fault of your own, get their service time kicked down the road and just take them on later.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's how you have to look at it. Like, out of sight, out of mind, just because it has to be. But then you get to see what either one of those guys still looks like when you come back or
Right.
when they come back. And obviously Burrows is a big one. Fingers crossed with him.
Right. And Douglas Smith says, yes, Keller contract is important. Skeens won't be here beyond 6 years. I guess we all knew he wouldn't be picked too, right? I mean, we all knew Reynolds was getting traded, right? We all knew. I mean, at some point, can we stop deciding they've screwed up before they screw up? Like, let's let they do it plenty. We can point it out when they do. We don't have to pretend they're always gonna. You don't know.
And if
Haynes may be that type of guy that just embraces a city and wants it here, and maybe
and
he and Reynolds are mustache brothers, and who knows what happens.
and I will say this with anybody they'd have picked out of this top heavy of a draft, there was probably way more chance that they won't sign after 6 years. Any of these guys, if they're really, really, really good, which is what you were hoping for in the first place. You got to get there first with them, and then okay, if they leave, yeah, it sucks, but that's just the reality. At least you got what you wanted out of them in the first place. Hopefully,
that's the hope, man. That's why he needs to be good from the gate. If you're going to go that route, and that's why you take a guy like this, because you really and truly believe he has that capability to be good from the gate. So
he's still, like, he looks like an older dude. Skeens is only 21. I think, like, you look at him, he looks like, 34.
He's built like a crap house, man.
Yeah, he looks like a 34-year-old tow truck driver, but he's still. He's still young too. So
KC asks, Velasquez next year. I mean, I don't think he'll be healthy even to start next year. He's not Pirates property after this year. He only signed a 1-year deal. I don't believe he was in their future plans anyway. Although, I'll be honest, he wouldn't be the worst idea to sign as somebody that can potentially, because he didn't have a full TJ. He had a partial TJ.
Right. And a big difference.
So there's a chance he could rehab and come back, towards the end of next year. And maybe then he's a good bullpen option for you, something like that. Because I did love what they did with him. And I really think he was a testament to some of Oscar Marin's stuff actually working on somebody. So
yeah, he's not a bad guy to approach. It sounded like he was amenable to wanting to stay.
Yeah,
now
you're going to get much out of him next year, no matter what.
No, and I will say that most guys in that position are probably going to say, "Yeah, I'd love to resign." Like you're not the market's not going to be super hot for you anyway. So it's not a bad idea.
Douglas Smith, maybe collective bargaining changes. Ding, ding, ding! It absolutely will change in 2027, and all of these TV networks going, haywire, and all of the big markets starting to say the SC words. Just stay tuned. I'm not telling you it's going to happen, but I'm not telling you it's not going to happen. Here's Matt Helmer. If you have new ownership, these problems are taken care of. I don't know what problems you're talking about. I don't think we talked about problems, did we?
I guess maybe the 6 years and he'd be gone type.
Oh,
Problem.
maybe. Okay, I guess that's a. I guess maybe, maybe, maybe. If you think this market can handle a $300 million contract, $400 million contract, I'll just agree to disagree. I don't think any owner is going to spend that here. I just don't. And before you hit me with the Padres do it, I'll remind everyone the Padres own all the parking around and all of the restaurant property all around and all of the, they have a lot of revenue streams coming in over there that the Pirates have not been smart enough up until very, very recently to start dipping their toe into, which is real estate. So maybe if anything's going to change, it's that Bob Nutting hired somebody smarter at business than him to actually do what they should have done a long time ago to support their baseball team in this town.
Yeah, I don't know that it changes things drastically. Do I think you could have a more aggressive ownership in place? Absolutely. But I don't see them turning into just, cranking out $190 million payrolls. I just don't see it.
I think that they can probably, with a little bit of even light restructuring in Major League Baseball, I think it's feasible to see them instituting some kind of a structure that's not a salary cap that kind of incentivizes everyone to spend up to like 175 or something. That would be the stopgap option. I don't think that's where this league is. I think that it got bloody last time. But we promised we weren't going to discuss this very much until we got to the next CBA because that's all we could talk about during COVID, Jim, and I don't want to do it again. So
yeah, I mean, and there's just so much that has to unfold that it's just. I get what he's saying, but man, I don't know. Is tonight the night for that? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I wanted to just point out Jacob Gonzalez was another player on the board here that was supposed to go like top 6 or 7. I was seeing from Old Miss, and he just got selected by the White Sox at number 16. So he really fell down the board considerably. I was kind of shocked by that. I actually thought he was like a dark horse for somebody that was like teetering on one of those borderline 5-6 guys,
Yeah,
So,
at least top 10 for sure.
here, let's see what Richard Wise has to say. We need a third baseman with power. Maybe O'Neill Cruz can get moved there. Andy Rodriguez at first base, Gonzalez at second, and Peguero, our future shortstop. Trade Hayes for a bag of those. You had me till that last bitter sentence, Richard. Listen, I understand. I think that traditionally corner infield positions have to have power. It's a problem. I'm not going to say it's not, but the defense is great. And Triolo is not much different. I think they have a chance for that to develop in Brannigan over the next couple of years. He's got a little bit of both worlds there. I think he's a good glove and he can do it. I think Ryan Hayes is a little more valuable than a bag of balls. I really hope that you were just joking.
I'll be honest.
Great.
He's still very good. I would feel much better about it as if we had that first baseman who could kind of be that power guy at the corner position and let Hayes do his thing over there, which we know glove wise what he is.
The thing is, I don't think Andy's that either.
He isn't.
First base is going to be an issue, man. I think they're still going to have to dip into free agency next year for it, to be honest. And Davis, I don't know, man. he's impressed me in right field. So I know he wants to play catcher. I know he's going to get a shot to play catcher. I know Andy is as well. But man, I've really loved watching the arm in right field. It's been a long time since we had somebody that could throw like that out there.
He's really surprised me out there, Gary. Like it wouldn't take much for him to be a pretty good right fielder.
Yeah.
Oh God, I had a thought in my head and I just lost it. Oh, back to first base real quick. Would they be interested in bringing Santana back?
Man, doesn't it feel like he's just trying to lay everything on the field this year, though, man?
I agree, but he I'm just saying, like, would they at least be open to it? I mean,
I don't know. I don't think it's developing internally is the thing.
mm-mm.
No, I think if you just want somebody that can play first base and can hit reasonably well, Andy, he can do it. He really can. I think he can catch too. I think he's going to need to catch.
Yeah.
So I think Henry can catch as well. But I'm glad they let him catch the other night for that inning. I saw a lot of what I didn't want to see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not poking
totally.
holes at the kid. I think he'll do well, but there needs to be some work there. You know, there's some stuff. It's a really almost weak target that he gives the pitcher for one thing. I feel like he's leaning in one direction in that on his knee a little bit, and it's preventing him from being able to slide over. He's going to break a finger or three, like just dangling his fingers in front of his crotch like that. I mean, there's some technique things he's got to work on. I'm sure they will iron that out in the off season. So it's not like I think it matters.
Well,
I see right now why they're not comfortable.
And next year, pitchers and catchers report, it's going to be huge for him. Like getting that work in before the season starts.
No, because he did a lot of work this spring too, and I was
Mm-hmm.
very proud. I would agree with this statement here from John Gorman. Hayes has to show something with the bat. Glove is incredible, but the bat is a major issue. There is no ducking it, Jim. It has not been good, and is it the back?
And a bad back ain't helping.
Yeah, is it the back? Was it the hamate bone? Was it the wrist? Was it? At some point it's just maybe it is Brian Hayes, and he's signed for a good long stretch, but it's a very reasonable contract, and believe it or not, eminently movable if you really, really felt you needed to. Somebody would take him. That is a bargain contract for that kind of defense and the potential of getting that bat right. And maybe somebody could.
Well, you put him on a team that has offense all over the place, but maybe would like to shore up third base and they don't really care, what he gives them at the plate. I think you could easily find teams like that right now.
Yeah, but I don't think that I'm in a place where
Mm-mm.
I'm so confident in Triolo that I have to move right. And because that's what you would do. You're not moving O'Neal Cruz over there. I probably shouldn't have just ignored that earlier, but I just had to for my own mental sanity.
No.
If you think Cruz has problems throwing accurately from shortstop, he would have more problems throwing accurately from third base. And I can't even begin to talk about how easily people would bunt on somebody that, it's not going to be easy for him to come in on balls. That's a lot of moving parts. That's all I'm going to say.
So different, short and third. My goodness.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the people always want to shove him at first base too. I understand that. I actually, long term for his body, I understand that. I think, okay, it is a waste of the arm, but hey, if the arm's not going to be accurate, at some point you're going to have to find a place to put him, right? I could see it, but again, Jim, he's kind of an awkward body type for there. Like there's a lot of scooping at first base and a lot of like awkward stretching, and I'm not sure that's safer for a guy that's that long.
It doesn't make sense to me. I could much more see him doing the thing that Tatis has done and now playing right field and playing it
Oh,
very
not the
well.
steroids part. Okay.
Not the steroids. No,
Okay.
not
Okay.
the steroids or the bad teammate part. I mean the playing a corner outfield spot and probably being pretty good at it. I could see that, and then you're using his speed too, right? So like you could still use his athleticism out there.
Right. And here like Richard Wise says he loves the Skeens pick. We're seeing that still trickle in. And then he also says Triolo looks better at this point. Yeah, at this point, he's been here about a month. Remember that first
Well,
month that Brian Hayes was up here?
well, yeah, but better at what, Gary? Because even as good as a fielder as Triolo is, let's not confuse the two. Uh, like
They're not the same, right?
no. If anybody's going down that road, it's just not accurate. If you want to make the argument that maybe he could be a better hitter, I don't know, maybe,
Yeah.
but it not look like I've happened to think Triolo has looked very good at third, but there's still a fairly decent sized gap between what Brian Hayes does there and what Triolo can do.
I would agree, man. So let's see. Casey says, agree with Doug Smith. If we get power from short from Cruz, which is not typical power spot, then Hayes is fine at third. I would agree, except shortstop is kind of becoming a typical power spot anymore. You almost have to have it. There are no more Ozzie Smiths, right?
Yeah, I think it's second base. You can still make that argument a little bit around baseball is that you're not looking for a ton of power, but I think shortstops now you're seeing like a little bit of a change of the expectations there. At least from the dynamic ones, and Cruz hopefully falls into that category.
Here's Ron Chess. Hedges defensive throws ball into outfield often. I just thought that sounded funny. He did throw it into the outfield today, and I said like it's piling on at this point. I think we all understand what's going on here, but Hedges is the thing you're supposed to be super great at. You're just not showing me you're super great at. Sorry. I mean, I can't on one hand evaluate Henry Davis and talk about where I see deficiencies, and then on the other hand look at Hedges and not evaluate where I see deficiencies. And I shouldn't see any if all you do is defense.
Yeah, he doesn't do as good of a job in controlling the running game as you would like to see, and then you're starting to deal with
made a fatal error today.
Yeah. And then what you're seeing later in games is now they're like trying to like work around like pinch hitting and doing those things because you can't have him take a crucial at bat, right? You can't trust him to do anything. If you get into the seventh and eighth inning and runners come up, you can't have him bat. So now you're trying to work around that aspect of it too. I hope Endy's up soon, and then maybe some of this starts to get reduced as much as you can hope for. And that would be my hope, that you're going to see Endy soon.
Yeah, I think so, man. Let's see what else we got here. Boy, we're still debating Triolo and Hayes in the chat. A lot of that.
Well,
Skeens should start at AA Altoona. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we landed too, Jim. I think that's probably the way to go.
I don't have an issue with that at all.
Right. Let's see. Lots of chatter about that. Let's see. McDam says, I love the pick. Got to take the risk for sure. Dude is a monster. Certainly could be. Jim, I think that's probably the moral of the top of the draft board, really. Everybody just kind of took one of the can't miss that when they had an opportunity. Nobody played games because this draft might actually be deep enough to not even have to do that. That's another aspect I don't think a lot of people were thinking about.
Yeah. Well, I just don't know that you can worry about it when there's that many selections in between picks. I just think you've got to keep your focus on that first selection and don't get too cute with it. I will say I was a little surprised the pick came in. Initially, I did not see the vitriol that I thought I would on Twitter. Maybe it wasn't coming across my timeline. And maybe it's out there since are doing this live show.
I mean, most of the vitriol really was people just assuming that they were going to screw up somehow, and it's really hard to look at that pick and immediately declare that they screwed up, right?
Yeah, and I hope that people were paying attention enough over the last month or so that the Skeens talk was
Like,
not just talk. It
Ron
wasn't
Chess just wrote it up here. Skeens ranked by Baseball America's best amateur pitcher since Strasburg.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. And so, like, even if people were still being very adamant about who they wanted and they didn't want Skeens, that even maybe in the back of your mind, you could at least say, like, okay, well, what I'm seeing and hearing and reading, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. And I can't be super pissed off if they take Skeens.
No, but I mean, that is the thing, the injury bug, right? That's what everybody's worried about.
Sure.
We talked about Strasburg being a success, even though that happened, that he had went through that injury bug.
Yeah.
I think obviously that's not ideal. That's not what you want to have happen here. But at the same time, when you're getting a guy like this, and let's say that Doug was right earlier and they really are only going to keep him for 6 years, it's certainly possible. I mean, like, that's going to be a hard guy to hang on to. I'm not going to sit here and say otherwise. What I would hope is that my GM would not be as stupid as the last one, trade him a year early for a bag of trinkets.
Right.
But
yeah.
I think all in all, the guy's got the frame that kind of makes me feel a little more safe about him. Garrett Cole had that as well. Just it's a presence and a frame about you. You don't look like you're struggling to throw the ball as hard as you're throwing it. Like when you would watch Jack Leiter throw it 97, 98 miles an hour, you could tell he was putting everything he had into everything he threw.
Yeah, it was a whole body type deal. When you get to the Skeenses of the world, the Coles of the world,
Hunter Green, to a degree.
Yeah, going way back for all these old heads on here, the Roger Clemenses of the world. There's a body type that makes you feel a little bit better about big power arms, and Skeens at least has that going for him.
Let's see. Michael Joseph says Pirates needed pitching, and they got the best in a while. Very good pick. I think that's going to be the sentiment you're going to get from most people. And, a lot of people think a lot of different ways about Tim Williams, but you can't deny that he's a good evaluator of talent. He actually, runs Pirates prospects, but he's written for Baseball America and whatnot. So he knows what he's doing when it comes to evaluating talent. He landed on Skeens as well. Made a pretty impassioned plea for that to be the pick in his latest piece. And I read that. I thought it was interesting. It was probably about as concisely put as I've seen. I kind of haven't had any kind of communication opportunity since reading it, but he swayed me, man. I was okay. I was like, all right, I guess I could go that way.
Right. And that's kind of what I was alluding to with a lot of people. I think the more if you even had semi of an open mind, the Skeen stuff started to be hard to ignore, right? That right. Okay, well, maybe this is the guy that you just can't pass up.
Yeah, man. And Pittsburgh sports all the time speaks the truth, friends. I think I speak for all of us when I say I'm glad this is over. Yeah. I am too. I feel like we are signing like an armistice, and Pirates Nation can finally come back together now, united. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Ben Charrington is not an utter failure because of this pick. You don't have to give up your supposed season tickets, which on Twitter outnumber the actual number sold. I mean,
Yeah. What I will say is overall, like this pick should excite Pirate fans because you are talking about a guy that, from the pitching standpoint, 20-30 year type of arm, like with his repertoire. Like that's like, you want to talk about special. This guy could be really, really, really special, Gary.
yeah. And I would say too, like, John Gorman here, I was full on Dylan Cruz or bus train, but the Skeens body of work was impossible to ignore. It was a great pick. I think more and more over the course of the next few days, weeks, and as the
Mhm.
writers have had more of an opportunity to write in-depth, flowery pieces about how great of a guy he is off the field as well as on the field, and how wonderful he works, how hard he works, and he's working on this and that, and he's going to be this much more sexy than he currently is right now, and you know and
Yeah.
Andrew Filipponi tells everyone that he's the next Nolan Ryan because that's what he'll do. um I think everybody will kind of chill and come together on this and like the pick. There's just not a lot to pick apart, Jim.
There really isn't. And I will give, like, me, I get cranky about the Pirates. I will give them credit. There were safer picks. There were. If you were looking to be safe, you could have went a lot of different routes, Gary. You could have. They did not. Sherrington did not this time.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I was afraid they would. I was afraid they were going to be safe. So,
Ron Chess points out Filipponi 93.7 wrong again, said taking Max Clark high school out as usual. At least he's consistently wrong. Yes, when will we learn, people? When will we learn? When will we stop giving that fool an amplifier? Quit pushing his crap out. Quit panicking every time he says something. Like it's
and a
gonna
few
come
others.
true. It's not gonna happen because he says it. It just isn't.
I laughed out loud when I saw he had a tweet the other day about the draft, and he said, "My educated guess." Educated guess about the draft.
Yes.
Filipponi.
Let's see what.
Talk about an oxymoron.
Here's a good topic for us. There are a lot of veteran lefties to sign next offseason. Ryu, Arias, Hill, Snell, Kershaw. The Dodgers have an elite double A starters, so maybe they won't gobble them all up and begin with youth movement. Yeah, Harrison, you're right. It's nice to see all those guys on the board. I don't know if Hill's even going to be one of them. He could retire literally any year. I don't know what his plan is. He looks strong, but man, anytime you're playing baseball and you're wearing a knee brace on the pitching mound, and like, I don't know, man, any old time then you can retire. Kershaw really, he almost has a scheduled back month off in the middle of every season. I don't know how much longer he keeps doing it, and I also don't know that he wants to do it for anyone other than the Dodgers. Urias, I believe, could make bank. That's a dude right there. But that would be a big swing for the Pirates. And I'm not
Yeah,
sure I want
probably.
anything to do with Snell.
Yeah, probably too big of a sling for them. Uh, with Urias. And
Maybe shouldn't be though. If you're thinking about like, hey, I just got this stud. I've got Keller. I've got why not have like a killer lefty too? Let's just go all in on having a starting rotation of killers.
listen, you're you're preaching to the choir, man. Like I want those hogs. I want those two or three guys in the rotation that, like, you can win a series just because you can outpitch everybody.
Let's see. John says Andrew is the Jaggies for a reason. Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Easy call. Too easy sometimes.
Let's see. Ron says Charrington is good with the picks. Davis, Gonzalez, Majinski, all here. I have to agree. That's a pretty good track record for pretty recent drafts. And Gonzalez, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of pull back on Gonzalez for a minute. I like what I see. I also think what I saw in this Arizona series could either be a little bit of nerves playing in front of the fam, or maybe a team finally realized to start throwing him breaking balls. So I want to give that a little time.
There's a lot to play out there still.
Yeah, I love his approach so far. Though he's been aggressive. I think he's really impacted the baseball when he's gotten a hold of it, and he's made a difference in several games. So
yeah, and he's driving in runs. So I mean, far be it from me to criticize anybody that holds a bat for the Pirates that can drive in a run. But yeah, there's a lot to play out there yet. But I will also say, hey, when you're picking high, you better have a decent track record. Like if you can't hit on number 1 picks like Davis and you can't hit on number 7 picks, well then, so I can't get too carried away there.
I'll tell you what, Jim, one more controversy and then we'll wrap up today.
Okay.
So you heard Ben Charrington's comments today about being frustrated with where they are right now, but feeling like they're closer. He used that word, closer. I know. I mean, I'm sure academically, you know what he means. He means like they've moved this further along, and he's factoring in what he knows they have under control next year already, and everything.
Right.
But still, the fan in you tends to have that stuff rub them the wrong way. And I saw a lot of people had it rub them the wrong way a little bit on social media. So what were your thoughts when you saw that?
For once I didn't get super cranky about it because I mean, it's such a nebulous term. I think that, look, after today, when you draft Skeens, you're going to have Endy up. Cruz is going to come back. They've got some good development with Henry Davis, it appears. You've got Reynolds under contract. I think there's a lot that you can point to that's positive. Closer? Yeah, I guess. But I don't. How close though, Gary? I don't know.
I like the way that it's shaped up next year. At least the skeleton that I see of predictable pieces. I like what they're building on for next year, and what they spent this year on free agency. If they do that again next year and maybe add in another 10, 15, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I really am. I think that's a team that could compete in this division. Again, the Reds too. I know it's really exciting right now. I know everybody thinks they're the bee's knees. I really do. I think they have a lot of talent. I just think that we've seen young talent get punched in the mouth an awful lot in this league. And some of those guys haven't seen it yet. And a lot of those guys should be listening to Jonathan India, who's probably screaming at them, year 2 is not as much fun all the time.
Right.
So I'm just saying, like, I think they're still going to be in the hunt next year. I actually think they should be towards the top of the division next year. I like where they're shaping up, and I have some confidence they'll actually augment it because they know it's time to augment it. And
they've spent
investments.
They have spent some money in the past, so I think that they're willing to do it. They didn't spend it wisely, but if they're prepared to do it again, I think that they actually will.
Right.
So
let's do one more here. Should the Bucks sell high on Bednar? I wouldn't. I don't think that now would be the time to do something like that. I think you can get something out of him next year if there was an heir apparent, or somebody pushing like for equal playing time. But right now, when's the last time they had a win that wasn't a rare Pirates offensive explosion in which David Bednar didn't have to play a key role, if not too much of a role? I mean, like,
Yeah.
they're not prepared to move on from him. And I honestly think, even just from a team morale standpoint, I don't think that the room would do well with seeing them move on from somebody like that right then. I've heard this, like, when people like to throw the comparison to Baltimore moving on from who was the first baseman? I'm sorry, Jim. The guy that had cancer.
Trey Mancini.
Trey Mancini. Thank you. When he was traded, they were like, see, they traded their star in the middle of it because they trusted the process and they knew what they had coming. It's a little different. He was on the decline a little bit. The feel-good story was kind of over. It was time to move on because they had better options coming. They weren't going to pay him. They weren't going to keep him. And it was time. And they could get something for him, and he wanted a chance to win.
Yeah.
So he had given them a lot of time. That was a different situation. David Bednar is doing anything but crying to get out of this city. And I just don't see it.
Well, that's part of the equation too. I think the Pirates don't they appreciate the David Bednar piece to the team and to the city. I do think that. It'd be different if they had a guy. Look, if this was the Milwaukee situation where they had
Kevin Williams right behind Hader.
Yeah, they had the guy waiting. I look around in the Pirates organization. I don't know where where would that come from?
Colin Selby is your best candidate.
Yeah,
but
wouldn't
you want both of them? Like, because doesn't Holderman look a little shaky sometimes? Like, maybe he winds up being like your seventh inning guy, and then I don't know that now's the time to be trading somebody that you've got that much control over. My question would be, what do you think you can get for him? What do you think you can get for a closer with like 3 years of control? I'm not sure how much you think that's worth. It could be worth a lot. I don't know. Maybe somebody gives you like a top 10 guy in their system. Okay. I mean, it depends on what the system is. It depends on who the player is. What need are you trying to fill?
Yeah.
If it's pitching, I would suggest you're cutting off your foot to spite your leg.
I'll be the first to say that I get where they're going with that question, because timing wise, where does it doesn't seem to line up exactly right. Yeah. But there's a lot, right or wrong. I don't think the Pirates are interested in moving him from a PR standpoint.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's premature to think about that. Jim, we've had a good long run here, man. It was a good show. Thank you for being willing to do it impromptu with me while I'm out here in San Francisco.
Dude. You're out there. Maybe going to catch a game at the second best park in the country.
I was gonna, but I got in a little bit later because there was some weather.
All right.
Couldn't get over there quick enough. But anyways, it was good stuff. And I think everybody, Paul Skeens is great. Enjoy. I think it's going to be fun. And we're not going to have Ben say anything, so I'm just going to say it. Let's go Bucks.